Coming up on AVANT, Technology Insights with Ken Presti.
I think the encryption of voice and media has really helped that out. I think that has made customers feel a lot more safer that their audio is being encrypted, even though it's going out on what everybody perceives as the public internet.
Everybody in the technology industry knows that hosted voice has been growing like a weed, especially given that a lot of us suddenly needed to start working from home when this whole COVID-19 thing kicked in earlier this year. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know we've talked a lot about UCaaS and CCaaS, but what about the security ramifications of hosted voice? Things like traffic pumping, theft of service, spoofing, robocalling, and a host of other exploits that can basically be boiled down to fraud. We'll take a deep dive into all of this coming right up. Welcome to AVANT Technology Insights. I'm your host, Ken Presti, Research Vice President of AVANT Research and Analytics. The link between solving business challenges and cutting-edge technologies has become tighter and more complex than ever before. In this podcast series from AVANT Research and Analytics, we help enterprise decision makers sort through the business case, the value, the challenges, and ultimately the bottom line of technology adoption. So listen to us at your desktop, take us in the car, tune in from the commuter train, or download us at the gate. You'll find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google, as well as at www.goavant.net/podcast. My guest today leads all platform development, selection, and implementation of customer technology and management of core network technology operations for a major provider of voice, BBX broadband management, and unified communications. He has extensive experience designing, managing, and implementing complex network and telecommunications infrastructures for small, medium, and enterprise companies, including Exelon, the energy company, and GMAC Berkadia Commercial Mortgage. He's the Executive Vice President of Technology at Momentum Telecom. I want to welcome to the show, Marquez. So, Mark, welcome to the program. Glad to have you here today. We've had a lot of discussions on this podcast about the benefits of hosted voice. We've also had a lot of discussions about IT security. So today, let's merge those two topics together in terms of the relative security of UCaaS and CCaaS. Let's start out by looking at where does it all stand now, and what are the things that enterprise decision makers need to know in order to make the right decisions here?
Sure. So I think one of the things about, UCaaS and hosted PBX in general is the providers service a lot of businesses. So we look at security both, as links in a chain. We look at customers' network security, how they're going to communicate with us as a provider and the data centers. We look at everything from encryption of all of the applications of voice. We look at security for those data packets, which end up being voice and all of the surrounding applications. And some things that enterprise companies don't necessarily get involved in. When you go to cloud and even on traditional PBXs, there are things like traffic pumping and theft of service and domestic and international fraud that need to be taken into consideration. So I think as a service provider, we take care of all of that. We take care of denial of service and things like spoofing numbers and robocalling. So we see a lot of that traffic for all of our customers, and I think one of the benefits is that all of that is taken care of when you work with cloud unification and hosted PBX providers.
Okay, let's talk about, some of those common exploits on a kind of a one-on-one basis. You were talking about things like, hacking passwords in terms of, accessing the voicemail and then getting into the system that way. Um, you talked about call chargebacks and different areas of fraud. What are you seeing take me a little bit further down those roads in terms of what are some of the more common exploits that are coming down the path for you guys that perhaps the enterprise decision makers aren't really thinking about at the time that they get everything set up?
Sure. So I see a lot of decision makers look at the network security and they look at things like the networking and the switching and the circuits. But unless one of the things that has become more rampant, and this is with cloud and even premise, has to do with VoIP fraud. There is a monetary aspect to it. And if customers can gain access to users' devices or their applications or their mobile applications, and they relate to PBXs in general, they can elicit, monetary value in through the form of fraudulent calling. So there's a lot of things like voice connectivity encryption that help with that, but there's also if you look at customers that have voicemail, people are used to dialing their own number, hitting pound, entering a password, and they've got access to their own voicemail to listen to voicemail. A lot of advanced PBX features allow systems to enable call forwarding. And if a fraudster can get into a voicemail platform, they will enable call forwarding to an international destination, and then they will traffic pump calls into those numbers. So things like that, we as a provider are always looking out for areas like voicemail. We've seen things like last number callback. So one of the features is to get into your voicemail, automatically select that last number that called you back. If they will spoof an international number and generate calls. So things that people wouldn't think of when they think about network security, it's things like voicemail security and getting compromised in access into the systems to generate international or even offshore domestic fraud.
Mark, are there any clues that this kind of thing is going on in real time, or do you have to wait until you get hit with a massive phone bill? Anything that people should be looking out for?
Sure. So, Momentum as a provider, we offer, I always say, multiple layers of security. So, we run what's called unified communications threat platforms that look at everything from our customers' devices, their registration patterns. Are they changing? Are the IPs that they're connecting to, are they US based? Have they changed? We look at uh, the fraudsters will do scanning. So they will scan environments, and our systems detect all of that. And we use features like BGP flow spec to automatically cut that off at the knees. We block them from all of our data centers and access. So a lot of those attempts that we're seeing, we have systems in place to be able to do that. That's kind of the first layer.
Hmm.
As a second layer, we also look, every system has the ability, to get compromised. So if a customer has a PBX that's connecting to our environment and that system gets compromised, we run systems that look at the historical calls, the cost of the calls, the number of calls within a certain period of time, and we have automatic systems that make judgment calls similar to artificial intelligence and analysis of data to really make decision making, to see if it's fraudulent or if that's something that seems to be normal for a customer.
Okay, so we're looking at a world that has pretty much moved to UCAS and CCAS coming out of the old PBX. How would you characterize the relative security of the cloud-based platforms versus the premise-based PBX?
I think, like said earlier, I think we have the experience of dealing with customers. Our customers come in with compliance and security requirements if they're trying to meet HIPAA or PCI or high trust or ISO type compliance requirements. So we look at the customer, everything from the customer network through our infrastructure, and make sure that we're meeting all of those security requirements. So I think when our implementation teams are doing the customer analysis, that consulting, we're trying to understand is it a healthcare company? Is it a legal company, a government company? And we look at the requirements that they need to maintain. We meet those within our infrastructures, but we also guide them in the setup of the platform to make sure that it's secure. And we look at everything from customer networks to VLANs to, nowadays with soft phones and mobile phones, are they running mobile device management systems? Do they have endpoint detection and response to secure those applications? Because if a desktop gets compromised, oftentimes the applications that are on that desktop, including credentials and other things, can get compromised as well. So we incorporate things like single sign-on and identity access management capabilities. The more you can layer on security, the less chances that customer is going to be the compromised customer. So I think the experience and the process that we employ is really something that customers may not experience if they're trying to do it themselves.
Okay, so aside from the offerings of Telecom or any of the companies that you work with in particular, take me to the perspective of the enterprise decision maker. And I'm looking at one of these systems, either in the UCAS or the CCAS space. What are some of the things that I need to look at in terms of my own particular setup? So that I can take all that and kind of marry it together with my own set of circumstances and decide what's the best solution for my particular company.
Sure. So I think a lot of decision makers look at features and functionality, right? Obviously, the solutions have to meet their requirements. Communications nowadays can consist of everything from voice to video to instant messaging to presence to desktop collaboration to SMS functionality to application integration, and they look at it from a features and functionality is one of the requirements that I think is commonplace. Cost is also another commonplace. So I think people look at the cost. But me personally, we try and work with our customers, and I know our sales teams really look at our process for analyzing customers and designing that solution. And we take security and high availability and geo redundancy in place as well. And we look at the customer security and fit their needs. And the security can be a couple different ways. We can consult on building and segregating the data networks within that customer's environment. We can look at dedicated versus over the top on circuits and connectivity between that customer and us. We can look at incorporating customer security in the form of SD-WAN and encryption in that ways and extend customer SD-WAN infrastructures into our data centers and facilities to make us look like a connected partner to that customer rather than over the top on the internet. So I think through encryption and connectivity and network design and redundancy and availability, all those are just as important as the traditional features and costs that business decision makers should be looking at.
You mentioned over the top a couple times. And it's almost, we can also look at some of this in terms of the term bolt on, and we look at bolt on and with kind of a jaundiced eye these days. We look for everything to be in some sort of a unified package. On the other hand, you could also make the argument that you're taking a best of breed approach by using, these over the top services or bolt ons or however you want to characterize them. Um, is that the fact that that's almost a pejorative these days, is that fair, or is that really the way it needs to be looked at? Is it better to go best of breed versus the all inclusive solution that supposedly carries everything you need?
Um, you know, every company is different, right? So I think the companies that make it simple to deploy, right? When you say bolt on, not everybody's out there looking for a full fledged UCAS system day one. A lot of them are looking to replace an aging PBX. They focus on voice, but I think as they look at the platforms, they want to look at all of the other features and functionality and the costs, how easy it is to deploy them. Are the providers looking at the changing kind of technology space, and are they keeping abreast? What technologies do they see coming down the pipeline? We talked about kind of over the top. Traditionally, years ago, people used to look at T1s and bonded T1s, and even the internet nowadays, everything is going to the internet. So a lot of customers used to sway away from over the top solutions and wanted to get private circuits, which ended up being really expensive, and MPLS. And now with SD-WAN and circuits being 50 meg and 100 meg and 10 gig and so on, bandwidth isn't an issue. The internet's gotten
Mhm.
so fast to be able to handle voice and video and cloud-based storage and cloud-based applications that over the top now becomes an acceptable method of communicating. So I think when you look at the security, the tools, the applications, the security that's employed in them, the ease of adding those different features and functionality, and then building in the internet and its redundancy and customer security really encompass everything. So everything from
Mhm.
security to features that we talked about is what business decision makers should be looking at. I think there's a lot of experience in the service provider world that are providing these UCAS solutions, and we can provide good guidance to these enterprise business decision makers. And when they're making a decision, their salespeople should be consultative in building a solution to provide the best service for that business, not really just trying to sell them a feature at a certain cost. The solution sale and meeting that customer's needs is the company that you want to make sure you're tying your kind of cart to.
Hmm. Yeah, because you've always got to look at things down the long haul to see not just what your needs are today, but where they're going to be, a year from now, 2 years from now, what have you. You mentioned SD-WAN a moment ago, and SD-WAN is something that we at Avant have spent a lot of time talking about. We've got a 612 report on SD-WAN, and one of the things that we learned from that experience was that SD-WAN plays a key role in UCaaS and CCaaS in establishing the proper level of network performance. But we're also, we're also aware that SD-WAN also has some security features that factor into the equation as well. My question is along the lines of, to what extent do you see SD-WAN as a fundamental security feature to back UCaaS and CCaaS as well?
Sure. So I think a couple different ways. One is, traditional larger businesses that wanted MPLS because it was private. They used to build out these expensive private IP networks that it was just their network. They were private. And I think those companies have gravitated towards SD-WAN from a security perspective because they can get that private IP, but they get the larger internet bandwidth, and they can get multiple internet bandwidth circuits at the same cost that they used to purchase, slower MPLS circuits. And then with SD-WAN technologies, they've really taken encryption and encapsulation functionalities that SD-WAN incorporates, and they get the level of security there. And also, a lot of the SD-WAN solutions, they they build firewall functionality into it, so they don't necessarily they lock down automatically versus having to build security policies. So a lot of the management capabilities, the simplicity that I was talking about earlier, that you get with SD-WANs and managing your wide area network, everything from QoS and policies to security, to ease of use to reporting. There's a lot of all of that that's built in SD-WAN that really makes that managing that wide area network a lot more feasible, rather than having to employ a large number of staff and high level staff to do that.
When you're looking at hosted voice in general and you're looking at the security piece of that, how much does it matter the degree to which your infrastructure is spread across the world? So you're in a worldwide, in a global organization, large corporation that's got offices all over the US. They may have them in Europe, they may have them South America, anywhere. Um, and you're crossing a lot of political boundaries. You've got a lot of different requirements. You've got a lot of different types of services. You've got a lot of areas where security may be something that is very important politically, or maybe not important politically. What do you see? How does all this change when you're dealing with that kind of a global arrangement?
Yeah, if the applications are designed and the services are designed securely, it's designed to cross boundaries, right? So I think from a hosted PBX and cloud unifications, all of the applications use SIP, TLS, and SRTP, which is encrypted voice and audio. So that works well transitioning, globally, securely. And also, when you look at the applications, they all run, HTTPS and SSL, so you've got encryption on the applications. All of that has been designed for banks to function internationally, for your applications with AWS and Google and Microsoft and everybody else is using all of the same encryption, and it's all been designed to function globally, along with the high speed availability of the internet, both domestic and globally. So I think all of these solutions are really kind of pairing together well, for companies that want to look at deploying them globally versus prior to having to build that expensive private network with MPLS globally to get that security. All of these new available technologies are really making that a lot more simple and a lot more cost effective, and taking security into the same mindset.
Mark, is it fair to say that hosted voice security has really improved over the course of, I don't know, let's say the last 5 years? There was for a long time, we lived in a world where there were security concerns around basically anything to do with the internet, and especially as relates to voice traveling over the internet. Now that's not as much of an idea of a problem. You've got situations, government entities that a few years ago might not have been willing to use hosted voice that are now starting to do that. What's changed? What is it that has fundamentally brought that to a higher level?
Yeah, I think the encryption of voice and media has really helped that out. I think that has made customers feel a lot more safer that their audio is being encrypted, even though it's going out on what everybody perceives as the public internet, right? A lot of the security on the public internet, people really relate to like being in a Starbucks and having somebody be able to grab your data as you're at Starbucks. When you're in a business and you're getting dedicated provider circuits to your provider ISP, and those ISPs are paired with other ISPs, and that traffic's really going out over the public internet, but it's not as open as what people perceive when they're in a Starbucks or in a shared environment. So I think the encryption of the voice and video has really put customers at ease on the security, and I think just the availability of applications all being encrypted. I think the experience of the more customers that have gone to the cloud, I think the providers have seen the security risks and have turned around and tightened down all of the areas, especially around fraud and those types of things, to make sure that today's solution is a lessons learned from the years of the past, so to say.
So I want to go to one of my favorite questions, and anybody who listens to this podcast regularly has heard me ask this one many times, but it always brings things to a new level when I ask it. If you were talking to a friend of yours who was saying, Mark, I want to go to hosted voice. I've got some concerns about the security aspect of it. And you'd, of course, tell them, basically what you've just told me on this podcast. But what watchwords would you give them? This is a friend of yours. What would you say? Look out for this, or make sure you do that, or make sure you don't do this other thing.
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about it earlier, where business decision makers look at functionality and cost, and I think the consultative aspect of a provider that's concerned about security. If people talk about security, if it's a part of their sales process, if it's a part of their implementation process, they want to make sure that the not only the customer's network is secure, but they talk about their own security, and it's a high level conversation that's needed in that sales process and implementation process, then I think that you're in a good place. You can tell when you're with people that understand security, live security every day. It's an ever changing world, and there's nobody gives up when they're trying to compromise networks and services. So I think you have to take it seriously, and I think the companies that focus on security from a compliance, from a regulatory, all of that really kind of you have to meet certain requirements to gain those compliance and regulatory certifications. So I think if you're dealing with companies that have those certifications, and complete secure everything from security awareness training within our business, our employees and people are typically the areas of risk. So companies that do security awareness training for their employees to make sure that their systems are not getting compromised and allowing people into the service provider network. Um, Service providers that segregate their corporate offices from their data centers, companies that have identity access management platforms, that run security information and event management platforms for logging security events, and using the SIEM and the artificial intelligence and capabilities to look for anomalies, 24/7 when people are sleeping. You've got those that are looking at security, and also people that run security vulnerability management platforms within their infrastructure and their data centers that are constantly looking for security vulnerabilities. So security really, you have to look at everything from mobile devices to endpoints to data centers to PCs to applications that are running to patching to you name it. There's just a lot going on, including pen testing. So all of those things are the things that you want to hear from providers, that they've got it under their belt. They're focusing on it. They complete it on a minute, daily, weekly, yearly basis. They're focusing on security. You'll be in the right hands if that's what you're hearing. And
That was an excellent checklist. I hope everybody that's listening to this podcast actually rolls back a little bit to take a few notes on that because, especially in the area of security, it's all about what you left out. It's all about what you didn't think about. Those are the things that come back to bite you. So, I'm hoping that everybody would take a strong look at that and make sure that they've implemented all of those things into their processes. Mark Marcus of Momentum Telecom, great discussion, my friend. Lots of great information in that. Appreciate your time, sir, and thank you very much.
appreciate you as well. Thanks, Ken.
You've been listening to AVANT Technology Insights, featuring information and opinions on how key technologies can be leveraged to solve business problems. AVANT Technology Insights is a service of AVANT Communications, a platform for IT decision-making. All opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and the host. For more information, please feel free to download our research reports and other resources at www.goavant.net. That's www.goavant, as in victory, ant.net. For Avant Research and Analytics, this is Ken Presti.